I can remember being a kid at a movie theatre and seeing a trailer for an upcoming Godzilla movie, which featured kids on a school excursion looking at the bones of a T-Rex at a museum, where Godzilla steps on the T-Rex skeleton. It looked awesome! This scene wasn't in the movie. However, when the Godzilla movie of the 90s finally did come out, what we got was a whole lot of Matthew Broderick.
It's the Topolis.
And a ton of out-of-place oddball humour, as well as a Godzilla that looks nothing like Godzilla, and a heap of creatures that look like velociraptors straight out of Jurassic Park. Seriously, it's like someone saw the ending scene of the T-Rex roaming the city in Lost World and said, yep, let's make an entire movie about that and slap the Godzilla label on it. Needless to say, the movie was torn to shreds when it came out, and was seen as a low point in Godzilla's name. Even lower than this. But the question is, could we have been too harsh to this movie? And is Godzilla 1998 actually a decent film? Spoilers, yes, it could have been a decent film if they gave it a different name. Like, if they literally called it anything else but Godzilla. So today, 10 things you didn't know about the controversial 1998 Godzilla movie. Let's check it out. Number 10. Making Godzilla for an American audience took 10 years of convincing. The story of Godzilla 1998 starts with movie producer and distributor Henry G. Saperstein, whose company UPA had been distributing Toho movies for American markets for many years. Toho, of course, being the Japanese company that owns Godzilla, and has been making Godzilla movies ever since the very first movie in 1954. Saperstein saw great potential in releasing an Americanized Godzilla movie, one made for an American audience, as Godzilla is a recognizable and well-loved icon of pop cultural fiction all over the world. So why not make a Godzilla movie in the holy land of cinema itself, Hollywood? And so, after trying to convince the company for a solid 10 years to make an American Godzilla movie, Toho finally gave in. Number 9. No studio wanted to make an American Godzilla movie. Now, something to keep in mind is Henry G. Saperstein's UPA company owns the Mr. Magoo character, and Saperstein originally met up with Sony Pictures producers Cary Woods and Robert N. Fried to make a Mr. Magoo movie. However, during the meetings, Saperstein kept bringing up making a Godzilla movie. So all three of the movie executives were excited about making an American Godzilla film. So they went to Columbia Pictures about making a Godzilla movie with all their enthusiasm and gusto. And Columbia Pictures said, "No, we don't want to make a Godzilla movie today, thank you very much. Aren't you guys meant to be like making a Mr. Magoo movie or something?" Okay, not a problem, just a minor hiccup. The producers then took their idea to TriStar. Now surely they'll be excited and see the potential. And TriStar was like, no thank you, we're good. So then they went to producer Peter Guber, who at the time was chairman of the board at Sony, and at that stage he had previously just had great success with the Batman movies. Guber was instantly excited about the prospect of making a monster movie. Not only that, but a Godzilla one. And so he reminded TriStar exactly what they were dealing with here, and that the movie must be made. And so this new version of Godzilla went into production. Number 8. Toho's Terms and Conditions. So a TriStar chairman was sent to Japan in order to work on negotiation deals with Toho for getting the movie made. And thankfully we have good old Wikipedia to provide all those conditions that Toho had for TriStar in order to make a Godzilla movie, which included an annual licensing fee to use the character, as well as an estimated $400,000 advance payment. Toho would also have distribution and merchandising rights of the movie in Japan, as well as a cut of the movie's international box office earnings and merchandise earnings, and even production bonuses. And finally, Toho being allowed to make their own Japanese Godzilla movies, while TriStar is making their American version. Not only that, but Toho were very protective of Godzilla. I mean, come on, it's their baby. A very big baby, but still their baby nonetheless. And obviously didn't want to see the character butchered in any way, and to stay faithful to the Godzilla legend. So the company sent Sony a 4-page rule book of how to present Godzilla on the big screen.
So, what happened?
Number 7. Jan de Bond's Godzilla movie. So this Godzilla movie was officially given the go-ahead in 1992, 6 years before the film's eventual release, with its production starting before Jurassic Park. And so by 1994, Dutch filmmaker Jan de Bont was hired as director, probably because at that time he was having great success with his directorial debut, Speed. Now, if you think the movie we got strayed too far away from the original Godzilla legend, then oh me, oh my, just wait till you hear of the Godzilla movie that de Bont had cooked up for us, which would have seen Godzilla as an artificial monster created by Atlanteans in order to protect the world from a shape-shifting extraterrestrial monster. De Bont finally left the production as his $100 million plus planned budget was rejected. Several other directors were offered the job, but it seemed that no one wanted it, with other directors being sought after, including Tim Burton, James Cameron, David Fincher, and horror writer and director Clive Barker. That would have been interesting. The reins of this Godzilla movie were eventually given to the movie-making team of director Roland Emmerich and screenwriter Dean Devlin, as the two at the time had just made the movie Stargate and was also working on the forthcoming Independence Day, which would become a box office juggernaut. However, with Emmerich and Devlin coming on board, they wanted to take charge and have more creative control to suit Godzilla to their vision.
And supposedly at one stage, Godzilla was even an alien monster that was planted on Earth. Oh, I just can't even. Jeepers creepers.
Number 6. Godzilla in Godzilla 98 was originally going to look more like Godzilla. Yeah, what a novel concept. Now, if you can believe it, none other than Stan Winston was originally working on the Godzilla movie, which makes sense as he had previously brought the dinosaurs to life in Jurassic Park, and Winston's original Godzilla designs were faithful to how Godzilla actually looks. However, when Roland Emmerich got involved as the movie's director, he decided to change the designs of Godzilla, as he felt that this wasn't the designs that he wanted to go with. Once again, despite the fact that this is what Godzilla looks like. Emmerich hired designer Patrick Tatopoulos to create new designs for Godzilla, giving him the prerequisite that this has to be a Godzilla that can run fast. Tatopoulos designed this new, leaner, longer-limbed Godzilla based off an iguana, and, interestingly enough, Shere Khan, from Disney's Jungle Book, as he loved the character's chin, as it's something that always stood out to him. That's why Godzilla in the movie has this goofy-ass looking ginormous chin. Tatopoulos claimed that that chin always stood out to him as a kid, which is fine if he wants to make a monster with a big chin, just don't call it Godzilla. At one stage, there was even an idea for Godzilla to change colours as a cloaking defense mechanism like a chameleon, but that was scrapped. Emmerich and Tatopoulos had to get approval of this new design from Toho, and went to a meeting at Toho to present them with the designs. The Toho executives were speechless and just said come back tomorrow, but they did eventually okay it, feeling that it did at least keep the spirit of Godzilla. But as Wikipedia states, the man who not only created Godzilla, but was still making Godzilla movies at that time, Tomoyuki Tanaka, was unable to attend the meetings and see the designs himself due to bad health, and incidentally he passed away a year before Godzilla 98 came out.
I wonder if had Tanaka been able to attend the meeting, if things would have drastically changed. Because would he, aka Godzilla's father, actually even be okay with these designs?
Number 5. Even Spielberg was against the movie. So as Emmerich and Delvin's script evolved, more deviations were made to the Godzilla lore. For example, they wanted the creature to be more wild animal than monster, and removed Godzilla's ability to use his atomic breath, something that is iconic with the character. So instead, they changed the concept to, quote, power breath, where Godzilla can blow things away When word leaked that Godzilla won't be using his iconic atomic breath, it created a negative backlash from fans. It was pointed out to Emmerich and Delvin that the fiery atomic breath is something that fans would expect to see, where it was changed to breath that can ignite with the presence of a flame. Yeah, look, the whole thing just seems so misguided and like a step in the wrong direction. So much so, Steven Spielberg himself tried to talk Roland Emmerich out of making the movie, finding this Hollywood remake to be a silly idea, and further stating that he never saw Godzilla 1998 when it came out, as he didn't want this Godzilla to tarnish his memories of seeing the 1956 re-edit of the original Godzilla King of the Monsters. Number 4. Actor Quirks. The filming of Godzilla 1998 took place around New York City and Hawaii, and the shoot even got assistance from the United States Marine Corps. Matthew Broderick was cast as the movie's main lead of Nick Totopoulos, named after the movie's designer. Supposedly Michael J. Fox was considered for the part, but ultimately Broderick was cast, and he does the best with what he has, even if he just somehow feels out of place in this movie. And Jean Reno played Philippe, and in case you didn't know he's French, we're constantly reminded by just how much he likes coffee, because, you know, French. Maria Patillo played news journalist Audrey. I can remember reading a teen magazine at the time, because I was a teenager, in the wake of this upcoming Godzilla movie, with the magazine claiming that she was going to be the next big actress. But she seemed to have disappeared after Godzilla, and I always got her confused with Anne Hesh. As we all know, Godzilla was something of a Simpsons reunion, where we see Hank Azaria, Harry Shearer, and Nancy Cartwright appearing in the movie, making this the most gathering of Simpson voice actors outside the show itself. All I can say is that someone in the casting must have really been a fan of The Simpsons. Either that or it was all just one big coincidence. And there are two characters called Ebert and Gene, who are obviously meant to be a comical take on Siskel and Ebert. And it is theorized that this was done as a middle finger to the two critics for giving bad reviews to Roland Emmerich's previous movies. But Siskel and Ebert even claim themselves that despite making comical versions of them, they don't actually do anything with it. In fact, the fisherman we see getting killed by Godzilla is said to be based on an editor of a Godzilla fan magazine who was very critical of the movie in its early days of production.
I guess the gag was, if you don't like my movies, I'll make Godzilla eat you. Funny or petty? You decide.
Number 3. Not the real Godzilla. So with Godzilla 1998 deviating so much from its source material, and the fact that this version of Godzilla does not look remotely anything like the iconic Godzilla, it left many people feeling that this interpretation was really Godzilla in name only. In fact, this Godzilla monster would get the nickname Geno, which stands for Godzilla in name only. However, the Godzilla monster of the 1998 movie would actually turn up in the official Japanese Godzilla movies, namely the 2004 movie Godzilla Final Wars, where the creature was simply known as Zilla. He got the name Zilla because it was felt the 1998 American movie took the god out of the creature. In the movie, we see American Godzilla, or rather Zilla, in a battle with the real Godzilla, who annihilates Zilla and destroys him along with the Sydney Opera House.
Oh, that's just great! Why do we get stuck with Zilla? Australia didn't make him! Thanks a lot!
Number 2. Box office size does matter. Sony executives saw a screening of Godzilla shortly before the movie was to be released. And to put it bluntly, they thought it stunk and wasn't the movie that they were expecting. Fearing the movie would be a disaster, they doubled down on the marketing, where we got the infamous Size Does Matter campaign. Seriously, back then, the words size does matter were everywhere. On TV, in comic books, the side of buses, you name it. So the message was getting out there. Godzilla was on his way, and he's a big boy. Or, in this case, iguana. And it seemed to work, as Godzilla 1998 was released in May 1998 and made $379 million on a budget that sat somewhere between $130 to $150 million. So it did make money. It wasn't a failure. However, its box office earnings were still lower than expected, with its box office numbers drastically dropping in the passing weeks, and the merchandise associated with the film also wasn't selling very well. Then there's the critical response. The movie got negative backlash from both fans and critics. Yep, it sure did. With it feeling like this just isn't Godzilla, and overall many felt that it was just a loud, dumb movie, not worthy of the Godzilla name. Roland Emmerich would go on to say that he regretted making the movie, and that he didn't even want to do it, as originally he wanted to make a disaster movie about asteroids, but both Armageddon and Deep Impact already had directors at that stage, so Godzilla it was. Hank Azaria called Godzilla a poster child for everything wrong with Hollywood, and that the advertisements were better than the movie itself. And the criticism got pretty intense, as Robert Fried, who was a leading driving force for the movie being made in its early production, felt the direction chosen for Godzilla 1998 and all the deviations from its original source material was the worst case of executive incompetence that he had seen in his 20-year career, and that it was managed as poorly and as ineptly as you could imagine. Gee, just say what you think, why don't ya? And according to IMDb, Godzilla's co-writer and producer, Dean Devlin, got into arguments with disgruntled fans on a Godzilla message board, telling them to get over it, and even saying, quote, "To hell with you." Things got so hostile, the message board was wisely shut down. However, jump to 2011, and he did take the blame and responsibility of the movie's failures. Once again, according to IMDb. Not only that, but at that time, Japanese audiences were appalled by the mishandling of their #1 movie monster, something that's a part of their culture being butchered so much. And of course, Godzilla was nominated for 6 Razzies, and won for Worst Sequel or Remake, and won for Worst Actress for Maria Patillo. Needless to say, the relationship between fans and critics and the Godzilla movie was not a match made in heaven, and this movie seemed to piss people off more than it did entertain them. Number 1. Scrapped Trilogy. Due to the disappointing box office returns of Godzilla 1998 and its negative reception, 2 sequels that were to follow were dropped. Godzilla 1998 was originally pitched as a trilogy. The sequels would have seen Godzilla's offspring that we see at the end of the first movie take on a giant insect in Sydney. There they go with Sydney again. What's the fascination with Sydney here? As well as explore the concept of Monster Island. But history had other plans, and this intended Godzilla trilogy was stopped dead in its tracks. However, the movie did spawn an animated series. The animated series acts as a direct sequel to the movie, where Nick Totopoulos, now voiced by Ian Ziering, finds one of Godzilla's offsprings, which grows full size and now works for the human characters, becoming the show's hero, where he fights off other monsters. The show was actually well received and lasted 2 seasons, and it was felt that the series was more in alignment with the original Godzilla mythology, as opposed to the 1998 movie that it's based off. So this begs to ask, does anyone actually like the 1998 movie? Well, yeah. The movie does actually have fans. Those who grew up with it have a nostalgic love for it, and possibly those who aren't seasoned Godzilla fans still may have gotten some thrills. Matthew Broderick has stated that he likes the movie and couldn't understand its failings at the time. And the director of Godzilla -1, Takashi Yamazaki, has also praised Godzilla 1998 by calling it fun and well executed, and that it's not without its merits. In fact, one of the tragedies of Godzilla 1998 is that it never got test screenings due to its tight schedule. And it's also been theorized that had Godzilla had test screenings, then all its faults could have been pointed out and improved on. So maybe the movie did have a chance of not failing so hard. And look, I can't deny it's a well-made movie. It's a popcorn film full of razzle-dazzle special effects and explosions, up there with the Jurassic Park and Independence Day quality. Yes, it can be cheesy with its wacky 90s comedy, but it is enjoyable B-movie bubblegum fluff. It just shouldn't have presented itself as a Godzilla product, because really, it's not. To conclude, is this a good Godzilla movie? Hell no. But if you take the Godzilla out of this movie, is it still a fun, well-made popcorn film? Yes, it is. And sometimes on a quiet, rainy day, that's all you need.
Once again, it goes back to attempting to pass off this movie as a Godzilla movie, which is what killed it. They should have just called it something else. I'm sure that people would have liked it more had they called it Iguana. But would it still have made the big bucks without having the Godzilla brand attached to it? Probably not. But that's the dilemma. What is the top priority here? Making good product or profit? Anyway, I'm Minty, and like Siskel and Ebert, I hope that one day someone bases a Godzilla character on me. And when I'm getting killed by Godzilla, I want my death cry to be, "Not without my shoes!" I always wanted to say that. See ya!